I was just talking with somebody this morning who is also like raised Catholic, and we both were kind of expressing our confusion at just the vibe of people who convert to Catholicism, because that's basically who we're going to be talking about today on the conservative Catholic right, are people who converted, and then not just converted, but became trad cats. And I think, anybody that spends a lot of time on Twitter has noticed these people, Catholics, right? They're a prominent
there's
subculture.
Certainly a block on Twitter. A lot of them are very passionate and vociferous posters. It's an interesting trend in the Catholic sphere towards integralism, as it's called. I mean, they'll say that it's not a trend, that it's the traditional Catholic political theology. And obviously, like, they do look to their tradition and to their text to kind of ground the ideas of the contemporary wave of integralism, but there definitely is a resurgence of sorts happening. And it's definitely interesting to discuss, because this is definitely a movement that very explicitly recognizes the subliminal jihad in certain ways. They definitely are interested in the interaction between this world, the perceived world, the world of the political or the temporal sphere, with other spheres, supernal or spiritual spheres. And that is kind of the main preoccupation of their political theory, their aspirations, and their agenda, their movement. Yeah, exactly.
You could pretty fairly call it an agenda.
And although they don't really seem to have like a clear plan for realizing this, but like their enthusiasm for it is disconcerting, as is like their prominence as like intellectuals within their own world, and the power that's occasionally afforded to them by institutions.
And I think, the main topic that we're going to kind of swirl around today and explore is the concept of integralism. And to a lesser extent, we'll also talk about a somewhat related concept that has a little more currency on, I guess, what you would call the Catholic left, which is distributism, which occasionally pops up in kind of left spheres as an interesting Catholic alternative to both socialism and capitalism. We'll kind of get into that, but really the sussest one of the two is definitely integralism, which basically kind of presupposes or aspires towards nothing less than the supersession of the church and its, I guess, laws and values.
Be careful, okay? You're not recognizing the Galatian diarchy at all right now, okay? I think we need to read, from the Josias, the Josias.com, which is like almost the official or maybe the unofficial website of integralism. I think we just need to read, their little bit about integralism in 3 sentences. Sure. That is the little thing that will get this across. Integralism by one of the leading figures of this intellectual movement, a young man, and I guess a member of the Cistercian order. I hope I'm saying that right, am I? Anyway, he's a member of this order.
Edmund Waldstein?
Yes, Edmund Waldstein, also known as Pater Edmund. You maybe have seen him on Twitter. A lot of Catholic fanboys will have him with, I guess it's a Cistercian, sorry. Woof, I'm really whiffing these, but I don't care, I'm Muslim. And I feel like I have license, after some of the stuff that we'll go through in this episode about these people's views, I feel like I have license to mispronounce their names and show them a great disrespect and disregard at every turn. Anyway, so Catholic integralism is a tradition of thought that, rejecting the liberal separation of politics from concern with the end of human life, holds that political rule must order man to his final goal. Since, however, man has both a temporal and an eternal end, integralism holds that there are 2 powers that rule him, a temporal power and a spiritual power. And since man's temporal end is subordinated to his eternal end, the temporal power must be subordinated to the spiritual power. So there are 2 powers, but, one obviously is primary, because the whole point of this life is to get you to the next life. So everything around that comes first. So if, for instance, like it's good for the church to like be able to tell the temporal power what to do in terms of religious issues, like, you know, promoting basically everyone to be Catholic through nudges. Sunstein-esque
definitely maybe through some nudges.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, at least through nudges, if not through outright shoves, depending.
Shoves onto your knees to accept the legitimacy of the Pope or the Holy Father, which I have to emphasize is quite new in kind of American Catholic culture. And as we'll probably get into later, there are even some extremely reactionary American Catholics that absolutely hate these people and have gotten into a kind of subliminal jihad of their own against them. And while I do not endorse their ultimate goals for, I guess, you know, a more ideal Catholic-inspired world order, at least some of their critiques really do land pretty well, because the integralist kind of ideology, or the ontology, I guess, that they're operating with is pretty wacky. And it's like hard to really take seriously, except when you look at kind of how relatively influential a lot of these people are, right?
Yeah, there's like, something we're not talking about going on. Yeah,
I mean, in the sense of like people with no credentials.
Right. Yeah, they're not like complete whack jobs. Like, I don't know, trying to think of somebody who's just like out there. Like, we're not talking about the guy who communicates with Zorth or something. You know, for one, probably to me, like one of my long time, and I hopefully, you know, we're still under the radar enough that he won't see this and block me, because one of my long-time hate follows, like probably my one true at this point remaining hate follow on Twitter, is Adrian Vermeule, who is like one of the most outspoken and most prominent integralists. And he is a professor at Harvard Law School. And in addition to that, he was appointed, presumably because some like little perfidious bow tie man was whispering in Trump's ear, he was actually appointed to like the American Council on like Administrative Law. I don't remember what exactly it's called, like the ACUS. The ACUS, the Administrative Conference of the United States, Administrative Conference of the United States, which apparently doesn't get paid for or anything, but he still has his position. And I noticed that Biden did fire some Trump appointees to that conference, but
I noticed that. I looked at that article, but I didn't notice them mention Adrian Vermeule's name. So does that mean he's still there?
He's still on it.
Oh, wow.
Catholics sticking together. No, but I think
I think CIA, Catholics in action.
I think the real reason might be that like he didn't have another job in the Trump administration when he was appointed, so there was some kind of loophole where Biden couldn't legally fire him or something, or like it might be something like that, or it could be, you know, Catholic conspiracy.
Well, I don't know, because at the same time, we're delving into some deep intra-Catholic like intrigue and kind of ideological spiritual warfare right now. So the battle lines can get very tricky. We're going to try to untangle them as best we can, but I generally would regard Joe Biden as very much like a Pope Francis kind of Catholic, a very Jesuit,
and definitely there's no
Catholic.
Question that Vermeule hates Biden.
Yes.
In fact, something that's really funny that we'll get into is that Vermeule is a very prolific co-author of pieces, including a very famous one about conspiracy theories with Cass Sunstein. So he wrote about how, you know, conspiracy theories, basically they need to be like conspiracy theory groups of prolific conspiracy theories, including communities in like foreign contexts, you know, need to be like suppressed or subverted, you know, through various nudgely/shovely type ways. But like, you know, when Biden won, he melted down, like, and he went full election fraud. Like,
really?
He went full election fraud. Completely. It's really funny. You know, I think really one of the things about Vermeule that I think is amazing is that there's this one account on Twitter. I can't really vouch for the account itself because I don't really I couldn't tell you like what they actually even tweet about, but I see their display name from time to time, which I think is just totally brilliant, which is a 45-year-old man saying kek. And I think that's such a type, and that to me like is the epitome of Vermeule. Like he's like this old like professor, like fuddy-duddy dude who sounds like, you know, a Muppet. Like people say Jordan Peterson sounds like a Muppet. I think he even sounds more like a Muppet than Jordan Peterson, but he'll like be like that's based, it's so based when you, shutter all Protestant churches and force everyone to repent and submit to the Pope.
Yep, we'll get to that, because apparently...
it's pretty cringe not to be any religion except for a devout follower of the Vicar of Christ.
Yeah, he has a lot of deleted tweets over the years. He seems to be extremely online for a distinguished Harvard law professor.
He's extremely online. In fact, he had to scrub a lot of his past tweets because I think maybe post his appointment to this administrative conference.
Yeah.
Because, he's basically pretty much like a fascist. He tweeted what we were talking just before we started recording about one of his most galling tweets, which was about Francoist Spain, which basically consisted of the words "the good society" and
you want me to read it?
Sure. Read the context. Yeah. Read the context. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is from a tweet by Gray Connolly, who's one of those Twitter abbeys of a hound dog with a navy hat with smoking a pipe that I feel I've seen on going back to the Syrian warriors.
Twitter, I've seen.
He's
him around
a veteran.
Him and
the
monkey
Catholic
guy, the guy who has a monkey puppet, Jordan Perkins or whatever,
and people like that.
Intellectuals of the right wing,
Yeah, so this is in 2019. Gray Connolly tweeted, as an extreme case, British visitors to Spain in the 50s and 60s found ex-Spanish Civil War communists and socialists working on chain gangs, building roads, cleaning public places, etc. General Franco did not shoot them, instead wanting them to, quote, redeem themselves by work. And Adrian Vermeule replied, the good society, with heart eye emoji after it.
Yes.
And then Gray Connolly wrote, my late mother did mention how pleasant and safe Spain was then. Okay.
I bet.
You.
Yeah.
You sicko Opus Dei fucks. I wonder if they are an Opus Dei. It wouldn't surprise me.
He wishes. I think that he just wishes he were an Opus Dei.
Well, did he not clerk for Antonin Scalia?
I think he did, but now he's very anti-Scalia, because Scalia...
because he abandoned...
although a Catholic, he's an originalist, and he believes that Vermeule's new thing is common good constitutionalism, which basically is judicial activism, kind of living constitution theory, but where you kind of read into documents what you already think, but instead of for progressive principles, it's for integralism.
Exactly. If you really wanted to boil down the legal side of it, because there are a lot of professors and people that are involved in this, it's kind of basically we should use the kind of activist court kind of tactics of something like the Warren Court or something, or the Burger Court, but use it towards conservative policy ends, basically. And that basically is, I think, the primacy of that is sort of socially conservative ends at the end of the day. Though they do have they have a more interesting and complex relationship with corporate power than some of the old. Maybe we'll get into when we talk about some of the other recent converts to Catholicism, like J.D. Vance, and people that are connected to Peter Thiel and go on Tucker Carlson all the time and talk shit about American corporations and tech companies and woke capital and things like that.
Capital, the worst thing. They found out that they suddenly had this epiphany, that capitalism is immoral because, they saw a black person on TV and that was just it. They were like, oh my God, this is a sin.
For access to the full-length episode, subscribe to the Hour of Frequency at patreon.com/subliminal jihad.